Hello and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. I'm Klaudia, my pronouns are she, her. You can find me on social media at Klaudia Says, K-A-L-U-D-I-A Says.
And I'm Ollie, I use any pronouns, and you can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh. It's fresh with a PH. We're here. We made it to the end of season 4, everyone.
The end of season 4 and the beginning of the end of Supernatural being good.
Yeah, it was funny. We were, talking about this. I'd watched the finale already. This is, the final episode, which is the final 2 episodes of season 4. And it's funny because I think it was the episode before the last one we talked about was called Jump the Shark, and we made a joke about how apt it was, but I was looking at the episode list for season 5 and 6, and I was like, oh, they really did. Oh, it's dark.
Yeah.
Because they are not... For all of the ones I remembered in this season for being like, oh, that one was iconic, there are so many more I remember in the, next 2-3 seasons for being like, oh, that sucked.
Yeah.
So, it really is, this is really the end.
The tone of the show after this episode, enjoy it now. Enjoy it now, because after this, we're going to be like, I'm ripping my hair out. And again, we have to reiterate, this is a service that we are doing for you and for any potential new listeners out there. We are offering you a service. So when I say this is our last moment of enjoyment, when did it end? All the enjoyment right now.
It was at the end of, because here's the problem. These are 2 really good episodes.
Yeah, they're really good.
Both in terms of writing and directing, and acting, I will say, something that we have said on this show multiple times, is that the acting in Supernatural continues to, and has always continued to be, the highlight of the show.
Yeah. They carry the show.
Yeah. The acting is very good. Even when the show sucks, the acting still is pretty superb. But it is so funny because these are 2 good episodes. I believe, the first, couple episodes of season 5 are pretty solid. And then it's oh no.
It's season 5 is a slow decline. It's you're kind of slowly falling down the hill. And then after that, it's oh god, we're free falling after that. So there's good moments. And there's good moments all throughout Supernatural, but this is the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And literally also because of the apocalypse.
Yeah. And this is also not to say that there aren't good things from those seasons, because it's I think there's a lot of interesting parts and stuff that's worth thinking about.
Yeah.
But it's overall they're just kind of clusterfucks.
We'll get there. Let's talk about season 4. Let's talk about season 4.
Also, before we get into it, this is episode 50 of the Mystery Spotcast.
It is!
Which is really episode 50 marked by the fact that we're at the point where it all starts going south.
Well, that makes sense.
Very exciting.
Should have been episode 69. I don't know. Nice.
You know what? Let's go back and renumber them. Who's gonna know? Thank you guys so much for listening this far and for sticking with us. And without further ado, let's get into season 4, episode 21, When the Levee Breaks. This is, again, a pretty, good episode that I enjoyed very much. To sort of catch you up, if you'll remember, at the end of the last episode, Dean saw Sam drinking demon blood to use demonic powers and was like, that's fine, I don't care. Then Bobby calls them and is like, I need your guys' help with something, come to my house. So they go to Bobby's house, and they trick Sam into getting locked in Bobby's panic room. And Sam was like, whoa, what? And Dean is like, yeah, no, that is fucked up. We are not letting you go around doing that. You are detoxing. Also, this is sort of a content warning for, allusions to addiction and to detoxing. So keep that in mind if you are sensitive to that. That is going to be a big topic in this episode. There's also a lot of things that they do in this episode where I'm like, okay, if someone is having obviously, hopefully you're not watching Supernatural and thinking, I'm going to get my information on what to do if someone's having a health crisis from this show. But there are so many things they do where I'm like, that is one of the main things they say not to do when someone's having an issue. So
well, and they do kind of joke about it in the episode where they're like, well, there isn't really a manual for this, for like demon detox. And they're like, it's, and at one point Sam's like, it's not like drugs. Like, it is different. But at the same time, like, the metaphor is real.
Yeah.
They love a metaphor. They love a metaphor except for a homosexuality metaphor. But anyways.
Yeah. Well, they love the metaphor. It's they just don't love the actual implementation. Anyway, so the episode starts. Sam is locked in this panic room, and he's like, it basically picks up right where the last episode left off, right? Sam's in this panic room, and Dean is talking to him from the other side of the door. And Dean is like, why are you doing this? Like, you don't need to do this. We're letting you detox, all this stuff. And Sam is like, okay, I'm not doing this for kicks. Like, this is not for fun. I'm doing this because we need to defeat Lilith, and I'm the only one who has the power to do that. Like, this makes me stronger. You've seen it. And he says, quote, are you so busy being self-righteous that you forgot about her? And Dean is like, you know what? Okay, we're not doing this. Like, you're going to have to stay right here. Bobby and I are going to defeat Lilith. I haven't forgotten about her. But you have done this. You are not going to be there to help. You need to stay here. And he turns around and goes up the stairs because it's in Bobby's basement. And Sam was like, girl, Dean, please let me out.
It's so, like, also Bobby, top 10 Bobby moments I really do believe are in this episode, and like you can tell this is really hurting Bobby, and every scene he's just like he is fucking stressed.
Yeah, I feel like everyone in this episode is stressed. I can't wait because Bobby has some really good lines on this episode too, but we'll get to them because this is not happening quite yet. But what is happening is the editor's using a motion blur effect while showing Sam by himself in this room. He's sitting with his head in his hands, and he's like kind of like blinking really hard, keeps leaning back and forth, clearly having some sort of issue, and there's a motion blur effect to make it look like he's like almost psychedelic in this way. It's a masterclass in filmmaking, if I'm honest. It is funny. This is a episode written by Sarah Gamble, directed by Robert Singer, and I feel like that writing duo sometimes hits so hard and sometimes misses so hard.
Yeah, you know what? I respect the swings, even if they're misses. But I will. Yeah. It's very much giving stereotypical Hollywood portrayal of like detox and addiction.
Yeah,
which like it's not like insulting or anything. I think it's
no.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective, I didn't find it to be particularly like I don't feel like most of the time it doesn't feel like they're talking down to people dealing with addiction, except for like when it does, and when it does it's bad. But yeah. That being said, they do go to measures to be like, this is not the same, even though it is.
Yeah. Well, and even at one point I think Dean says he's like, oh, like, was it your fault, whatever, and he's like, no, you're sick, like, you're ill, and whatever, and then Sam's like, no, I made a choice, like, I'm not addicted, I made a choice, and Dean's like, no, you're ill. Dean's, like, trying to be like, I'm trying to help my brother in addiction, and Sam's like, we gotta kill her ass, so, like...
Yeah, Sam's like, I think that this is, like, an interesting point of being, and we'll talk about this, like, later in the episode, but of it almost being, like, Sam is very means to an end right now. And I feel like Dean is very, does the end justify the means? Which is funny because I feel like they go back and forth depending on who has the moral high ground, depending on the season.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I feel like Dean, because I think it's funny because if Dean was the one who had the opportunity to drink demon blood to kill Lilith, he would absolutely do it, right?
And to be fair, that's basically what he does. I mean...
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. Let's keep talking. So anyway, Sam is just kind of sitting down there, and then suddenly he is lying on a table, and he's like, whoa, And he looks up, and who's there with his weird voice that they decided he should have? Alistair. And if you'll remember, he was the demon who tortured Dean in hell, and then Sam killed. But he's like, whoa, whoa, Sam. Because that's how he sounds. He's like, I've been waiting to do this. And he starts, like, torturing Sam.
And it's worse than usual. Like, Sam is going through it. Like, because they get tortured all the time. But, like, this is, like, crazy style.
Yeah, and we don't really see all of it. And that makes it almost more chilling. Because what we do, how we experience this is we see sort of the initial moment of Alistair being like, I'm going to torture you. But we really hear it because it cuts upstairs to Dean and Bobby, who are listening to Sam going through this delusion. Not really a delusion, a hallucination. Like, they are listening to him experience this horrible pain, knowing that they can't do anything. And it's so fucked.
It's so bad. Like, you could tell Bobby is, like, about to cry. Like, it's bad.
They're both, like, on their last, like, on their wit's end. They're sitting upstairs, like, in Bobby's sort of, like, living/study area. Bobby's sitting at his desk. Dean is standing and is pacing. And Dean is like, how long do you think this is gonna take? And Bobby says, oh, here, let me look it up in my demon detox manual. Oh, wait, no one ever wrote one. And Bobby is like, I don't know, like, do we think that this is the right choice? Like, are we doing the right thing here? And Dina's like, we have to be. Like, there's no other option. Like, what else could we have done? And this conversation is interrupted by a phone call, which Bobby answers. He says, hello? Suck dirt and die, Rufus. If you call me again, I'll kill you.
They are so divorced dads. Like, they are divorced old man Yowie in ways we cannot comprehend.
Yeah. It's so fucking good. I love Rufus. I can't wait for him to, like, appear more. I'm like, it's one of those things where I'm like, you know, as soon as you start to like a character that isn't a member of the main cast, that they are not long for this world.
Yeah.
Spoilers. But Dean is like, oh, what's that? What's that all about? And Bobby's like, Rufus knows. So assuming he kind of, like, knows what is going on with Sam, which I'm like, how does he know?
He's
okay, like, whatever.
Yeah, it's never really addressed.
I think they address it later, like in season 5, but I digress. He knows, whatever. And the phone rings again, and Bobby's like, I told you not to call me at... Oh. And then it cuts, so he's clearly on the phone with Rufus. We cut back to Sam in the bunker. Alistair is not there anymore. He looks down. He's no longer bound. He sits up and is like, oh my god, like, I'm tweaking right now. And he hears a voice that's like, how could you let this be our life? And he turns around, and it is the actor who plays, like, young Sam.
This actor is eating it up in this scene. He's eating it up.
It's kind of weird watching him play opposite Jared Padalecki because they are so similar. Like, he has captured his likeness so well, it's weird.
It's wild.
Yeah, but he's there, he's 14, and he starts talking to Sam, and he's like, how did you, like, let us become this? Like, we just wanted to be normal. You were gonna go to college, and you were gonna get married, and you were gonna do, like, all this, like, become a lawyer, but then you left. And Sam was like, Jessica's dead. Like, I couldn't have stayed. And he's like, yeah, he's only dead because you left with Dean. You got out. You were free. And you could have had a normal life. That's all we ever wanted. And then you did this. And now this is where we are. Sam is like, you know, like, this was what was going to happen. Like, I have this blood in me. Like, I've always been different. Like, we were never going to be able to be normal. And 14-year-old Sam goes, maybe you're right. Maybe there is no escape, and maybe you can't run from what's inside you. And as he says that, his eyes flash yellow like Azazel, like the yellow-eyed demon. We cut back upstairs. Bobby and Dean are talking. Bobby has just gotten off the phone with Rufus, and he hands Dean an article, like a piece of paper, and Dean's reading it, and he's like, 10 species go extinct in Florida. And Bobby's like, yep, that's not all. 15 men in Alaska go blind, all in the same day. These are seals. And Rufus had told him about this on the phone.
When he said the extinct species thing, I was like, Mama, global warming. Like climate change. The climate change emergency, you may have heard of that.
So they're, like, realizing, like, a bunch of these seals got broken in the last, like, day. And Bobby's like, yeah, like, I went through and confirmed all of these, and Rufus also, like, double-checked them. Whatever.
Against what? Like, I thought they didn't know what to say, like, against what?
You know, that's a great question. But Dean is like, okay, like, they have to be coming up on 66 seals, right? Like, there's a lot of these that have happened. Like, we have to be close. And Bobby's like, yeah, like, there's no way there aren't, like, just a couple left. Hey, where are the angels in all this? And Dean is like, well, fuck if I know. Like, I don't know. They haven't contacted me. Like, I haven't heard jack or shit. So hopefully they'll get in touch with us soon. And Bobby is like, okay, I know, like, he kind of alluded to it before, but he's like, you know, are we doing the right thing here? And Dean's like, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't want Sam to be going through this and to be dealing with this, like, having the demon blood, all that. I think it's terrible, but he is strong. And, like, he does have the power to stop, like, he might have the power to stop Lilith. Like, are we letting the fact that we love him get in the way of doing the right thing? And Dean, like, challenges this and is like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, I'm not gonna let that happen to him. And Bobby's like, I love him like a son. Trust, but I think we love him too much, and we are letting it cloud our judgment.
But he's like, I love him like a son. And I was like, Bobby, Dad, real... Me when a procedural show has a bisexual man who has a father figure named Bobby.
I thought you were gonna say when there's a bisexual father figure named Bobby.
Well, that's
and I was
that
like,
too.
This is so 911 coded.
Yeah, that too.
But
wait, this is the Bobby that if he didn't have Athena, this would was what would happen to him.
But yeah, this scene, oh my god, it makes me want to scream and cry. I love Bobby so much. Bobby is the best. Dean is clearly off-put by what Bobby is saying. Like, he is not interested in giving Sam the opportunity to have more demon blood. We cut back to Sam. He is still in the panic room. Has not left yet. Hasn't made it out. Hasn't found escape. But he's sitting there, depressed. Likely thing for him to be in this moment. And what does he hear but a woman's voice say his name? He turns around, and it's his mother. Mary is here. She is in her white nightgown that is, like, bloody on the abdomen, like where she had gotten pinned to the ceiling the night he died. And she is there, right in front of him. She's not really there. It's a vision. In case you didn't know. But Sam is like, so are you going to tell me you're disappointed? Is that what you're here to tell me? And he's, like, acting his ass off, but is clearly really, like, expects her to lay into him. And she goes, no, Sammy, I'm not disappointed in you. I'm proud of you. You're doing the right thing. You're just being practical. And he's like, wait, really? She comes and sits down next to him on this, like, bed that he's sitting on, and she puts her arm around him, and she's like, Dean doesn't understand because he's not like you. Like, you are different, and you are so much stronger. Dean just isn't as strong as you are, and he'll never understand what you're doing, and that you're trying to stop this, like, you're trying to stop Lilith, and you're so strong for that. Our family is cursed, but you have the power to turn it into a gift. And Sam looks at her and he says, for revenge? And she says, no. for justice. And he says, like, what if Lilith is stronger than me and Dean is right? And she says, Dean is weak. He's terrified and in over his head. You need to do this on your own. And then she says, make my death mean something. Don't let anyone get in your way, not even Dean.
And that's when you truly know that, like, it's not really her, but I'm also just like, oh, John Winchester, when I catch you. When I catch you.
Because she also talks in this situation, I don't remember the exact wording, about how she was like, I was raised a hunter, and, like, this life is so fucking terrible, but you have the chance to make something of it and to really make a difference.
Which is also why when we were watching The Winchesters, and she was like, I would do anything so my kids don't have to have this, I was like, oh! I was thinking about scenes like this, where I was like, oh!
Yeah, but it's also just this, like, very tender scene. Like, she is, like, putting her arm around him and, like, putting their foreheads together, and it's like, it would be so... It's such a sweet tableau that makes it all the more sinister knowing that this isn't actually her and this is like a hallucination.
And he never knew his mom, so this is like what he imagines his mother would say to him, and you're like, oh, this is dark.
Yeah, it's dark. It's dark. It's a good scene, though. Now we have one of the gayest scenes in this episode.
Oh, on God!
Which I think is, quite frankly, a very underrated one.
It is. It is. It's not in enough edits, but my God! No.
So, Dean is standing outside in Bobby's scrapyard, because if you'll recall, Bobby's house is, like, in a scrapyard. That's how he makes all his endless, like, money and resources. But Dean is, like, outside, like, pacing back and forth in the scrapyard, and it's dark. It's nighttime. And there's, like, a pole that's illuminated by, like, a light that's, what is the word? Like, attached to it. Not attached, but, like, mounted. There's like a lone lamppost, which they have shown.
Exactly. They have shown Castiel appearing under a lone lamppost before. In a sort of, like, noir Halo kind of way. It's very... They ate that up.
Yeah. So, I guess, took the words right out of my mouth. Cass is there. He's leaning up against this pole. And Dean turns around and looks at him. And he's like, where the hell have you been? And he says, I've been screaming myself hoarse for 2 hours. Like, calling for you. What the hell happened?
Where the hell have you been, Loca?
Dean has been out here screaming. You mean to tell me Dean Winchester has been out here screaming for 2 hours and not even just, like, yelling, like, or praying, like, screaming? What the fuck? Because they also don't show him yelling, but, like...
They don't show it. And does he mean, like, mentally screaming as in, like, he's, like, praying for him? But also, why are you praying for another man?
But he says he's screaming himself hoarse, so, like, that implies he's been actively, like, yelling. Do you think Bobby's in the house hearing this, and he's like, what the fuck?
He's like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, one of them is yelling because he's in detox, and the other one's just gay.
Yeah, he's like, this is so dark. But Dean has been yelling for Cass, and he asks him, he's like, what the hell happened in Illinois, which was... You know, in the last episode, if you'll recall, Cass had said he wanted to tell Dean something. Cass got sent back to heaven. Cass came back and was like, I don't serve you anymore. But he's like, so what were you going to tell me? And Cass, like, walks up to him and he is like, it's not important. And Dean's like, okay, well, like, hell, it was important. Like, what was it? And Cass is like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't. But he apologizes to Dean. And he's like, I'm so sorry.
He looks... I'll say this. I'll give Mystery Smith, like, Cass looks distraught. He looks like he has lost everything in this moment. He looks just despondent.
Yeah. And they kind of take a minute. And Dean is like, okay. Do you think that Sam can defeat Lilith with this power? Is it possible? And Cass says, like, you know, it's a possibility. He might be able to. But if he has too much, like, demon blood, this will change him into something that you would probably think to hunt. Like, he will not be the same anymore. He will be turned into something else. And Dean gets upset. He's like, oh, what the fuck? Like, what am I gonna do? And Cass looks back at him, and he's like, Dean, you can stop Lilith. You can be the one who stops this. But you need to accept your role.
And he's saying these words as if they're being, like, pulled out of him reluctantly. He's like...
Yeah.
Like, and when you realize what the context is, that they are basically using Cass as, like, basically bait on a hook to get him to agree. It's so, like, because that's what they're doing. They could send any angel. Why send, and they make a joke with saying, oh, they sent him back to Bible camp. Why send Cass back into conversion therapy if not them realizing they can use him as bait? And later they joke about it of like, you know, that's your special little guy. But like, when you think about this conversation in that context, you're like, oh my God.
Let's also not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Because, like, yes, that is all true. But we'll get into that. But Cass, he's, like, looking at Dean also with these, like, sad, dreamy eyes. And he's like, if you accept this, like, your role, the role that heaven wants you to play, you can be the one who stops everything. Hold on. Sorry, I had said earlier, Cass says that he tells Dean he can stop Lilith. He doesn't actually say that. And that's an important trick that we'll use for later. He says you can stop this. You can stop what's going on.
Yeah, you're right.
So remember that. That's an important tool. But Dean is like, okay, if I do this, Sam won't have to. Sam, like, won't have to do this. And Cass says, if it gives you comfort to see it that way, yes. And Dean is like, you have been so much more of a dick recently than normal. Which I'm laughing, because I'm like, Dean, you don't really even know this guy. Like, you guys have not talked that much.
It's like, oh my God, Pookie Bear is angry at me. Like, stop.
But then he's like, okay, yeah, like, sure. I'll do this. And Cass is like, okay, then you agree that you will give yourself over wholly to serve God and angels. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, no, you need to say it. So Dean repeats it. And then Cass says, and this line got me acting crazy. He says, do you swear to follow his orders as obediently as your own father's? And Dean says, yes, I swear. Oh my God.
And here's the thing. They are standing so close together when this is happening.
No.
To the point where they finish talking, they pan out, and it's just the two of them looking at each other really close together. And
it's joking, like, maybe a foot apart.
Yeah.
Like, and that is not me being like, this is not us having shipping goggles on. This is not, like, genuinely, I saw this and I said, from a non-Destiel perspective, it is weird that they are standing that close. And the other thing, too, is that this scene ends with Dean saying that. The camera pans out. They are not still talking to each other. I think it is trying to add gravity to the scene and show, like, oh, he's agreed to something from God, so now it's, like, an above view of them, almost like God is watching. But it's so funny, because it's like they just stand there, maybe 20 seconds of complete silence, a foot apart, looking at each other.
And I'm like, God, I wish you guys would just kiss. Like, it's so insane.
We have to seal demon deals with a kiss, but we can't seal a godly pact with a kiss. Fuck you.
Yeah, also, it's really giving, like, fucked up wedding vows. Like, it's really, like, oh.
But this scene also drives me up the wall, because I'm like, Dean literally has been unpacking this whole time. Like, and especially in the last couple episodes, has been unpacking, like, is he actually like his father, or was he just following his orders? Because he's deconstructing and being like, my dad, like, kind of sucked, but, like, I can still, like, I followed him, I did everything he told me to do, but, like, maybe that was wrong, and, like, he's deconstructing. So saying, follow his orders as obediently as your own father's, and he says, yes, I swear, I'm also like, this is a sign of, like, how obediently is he actually going to follow these orders, because he's in his hashtag deconstruction era.
Also, I feel like that was a little thing from Cass, because, like, Cass knows and has seen his deconstruction and his issues with his father, whatever. Like, him saying this is kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge of, like, You don't follow your father's orders anymore, and this is me giving you an out.
Loophole.
An out. Oh,
Yeah.
God, they're so homo. Anyway.
Yeah, this scene is fucking crazy. I forgot. Oh my god, it makes me crazy. So we cut back to Sam. He's still in the bunker, and he starts, like, experiencing, like, a pain. And also, I did notice that there are, like, some magazines and stuff, like, on like, a table there. I'm like, at least they tried to provide some entertainment. But I'm like, yeah, 3 magazines I don't think is gonna last for that long. I don't know how long they thought this was gonna go, but anyway. But Sam starts, like, convulsing almost. And he had these black veins, like, he notices them on his arms, and then we see them, like, on his face coming closer and closer to him, like, to his face. And he starts, like, screaming and getting, like, almost getting, like, thrown to the ground and thrown back and forth. Like, almost like there's an unseen force tossing him around, like a hacky sack. We hear him screaming, and we cut back up to Dean and Bobby, who also hear Sam screaming. And Bobby says, "So you willingly agreed to be the angel's bitch? Oh, sorry. Or do you prefer sucker? After everything you've said about them?" I'm like, Bobby is so funny. I love him.
He said, "I'm being homophobic. Fuck it."
Yeah, but he's like, oh, so, like, now you're trusting them. Like, you're cool with that. And Dean's like, of course I don't fucking trust them. Like, I don't trust them. I trust them less now than I did before. But if it means Sam doesn't have to trust a demon, then I am happy to do it. So get off my fucking case, Bobby. And they're having this sort of this row, and then they hear Dean stops and he goes, "Do you hear that?" And there's no sound. And Bobby's like, "Yep, it is too fucking quiet." So they go downstairs, and they open, there's like a little, like an eye hole, like a little sliding viewport in, and they look into the room and they see Sam, like, convulsing and getting pushed around. And Dean is like, "Do you think, like, he could be faking it?" And Bobby's like, "No, absolutely not." So they go in, and this is something you shouldn't do if someone's seizing, but they grab him, and Bobby's like, "Okay, we need to bind him because he's gonna get hurt and, like, throw himself around. Like, we need to bind him for his own safety." And Dean kind of stands there watching, and Bobby's like, "Okay, like, now, like, you need to, like, snap out of it." So they put Sam, like, on this table, basically, and chain his arms up so he can't move. Then it cuts, I believe this was a commercial break, but we cut, Sam has woken up, and Dean is like, "I'm sorry. Like, we had to tie you up because you were going to hurt yourself. Why did you do this to yourself?" And Sam is like, it's like to stop Lilith. Maybe it's for revenge. And Dean's like, "Revenge for what? For me going to hell? Because if you haven't noticed, I'm back. There's no need to get revenge for that." And Sam's like, "Okay, but we have to stop the fucking apocalypse. Like, why are we're getting lost in the weeds. Like, the apocalypse is coming and we need to do something."
I do kind of agree with Sam here. I'm like, hey guys, it's not really about us. It is about everybody else.
No, like, he is low-key right is the problem, but I get why they're like, this might not be the method, but I'm like, he is making some points. But Dean is like, "Okay, you are not going to do jack or shit. In case you forgot, I'm not in hell because God picked me to do it. Like, I am the one who's going to do this. I am the one who can do this. Do you have any other excuses? Any other reasons why you did this?" And Sam looks away, doesn't have anything to say. They are upstairs again, Bobby and Dean, in the, like, living area. And Bobby's like, "Listen, I have held my tongue. This is killing Sam." And Dean is like, "Yeah, I know the demon blood." And he's like, "No, not the demon blood. We are killing Sam by keeping him locked up and making him go cold turkey. It is not working. He's gonna die if we don't do something." And Dean's like, no. If he dies now, he dies a human. And these, like, conversations are happening, like, in tandem, like, these two shots. So we cut down at the same time. We're in the bunker. And Dean is there in the bunker with Sam, which is crazy because we know he's upstairs talking to Bobby. So we realize, oh, this Dean is a hallucination. But Dean is like, oh, so what? You drink this blood. Is it because you have always felt different? You know, I like, what? Because you're what? A monster? Because you are, and you always were. And Sam is like, please, like, stop, like, don't say this. Please don't you say this. Then we cut back above. Dean is saying, I won't let, talking to Bobby, he's like, I won't let Sam do this. This is a line I won't cross. I can't let him become a monster. So Dean really believes, like, Sam is not a monster. He thinks he's protecting him from becoming a monster. Meanwhile, Sam has this vision of Dean telling him, like, I already think you are a monster. So we cut back into the bunker. Dean is calling Sam a monster again. And he's like, you know, I have pretended long enough that what you are isn't something that Dad and I would hunt. That I pretended that you are my brother, and you're not. You are nothing to me. And Sam says, please don't say that to me. Don't you say that. And then Sam opens his eyes, looks around, and realizes that Dean is not there. And that Dean was not real.
It is such a fucked up scene. Like, and it's also a mask tool we'll use for later as well. Like, it is so, they are acting the shit out of this.
Yeah. It is, these are chunky episodes too. Like, these are very dense. I felt like I was watching this episode for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
But Sam is lying there looking just so dejected and upset. And suddenly the bindings that are on his wrists and his legs, like, pop open one by one. And he gets confused and he reaches down, grabs his wrist, and is like, what the fuck? So he kind of sits up and looks up, and the locks on the door are undoing, and the door tilts open. And Sam is like, hello? Like, is anybody there? Nobody answers. So he walks out. He looks around, doesn't see anybody. And he starts slowly shuffling up the stairs. And these are stairs that are like freestanding stairs in the middle of the room. So we see between, like, the steps behind the stairs, who's there? Cass. And then we see the bunker door, not the bunker, the safe room door close and locks as Cass moves his wrist. Like, makes a, like, he is doing this. He lets Sam out. Sam runs upstairs. He looks around. He sees that Dean is asleep on the couch. Bobby is asleep on his desk. So Sam grabs his coat and, like, runs outside.
And as Cass is doing this, he looks so sad. Like, he looks bereft while he is doing this. It is so dark.
Nobody is having a good day. Nobody is having a good day. There's still a lot of this episode left. Like, we're, like, halfway through.
Christ!
We see this, like, industrial area by the sea. Almost like a little, like storage construction sort of area. It's nighttime. We see Cass. He is standing, again, under a lamp, standing next to a railing with his hand, like, arms folded, hands on his forearms as he's leaning on this railing, looking out at the sea. And then we hear a woman's voice say, why did you let him go? And he turns around and it's Anna. And she's like, why would you let Sam leave? And he turns to her and he's like, those were my orders. And she's like, he was getting help. He was detoxing. Like, that was good. This is worse than we thought. And we don't quite know what she means by that. But Cass turns and he, again, looks so fucking sad. And he says, "You shouldn't have come." And then 2 other people appear on either side of Anna, and they're angels. You can tell by the fact that they're wearing business attire.
Fuck-ass suits.
Mm-hmm. And there's a flapping noise, which indicates the angels appearing. And Anna, like, tries to struggle away, but they're holding her arms. Then we cut to Cass, and it's a shot of him from the front. And slowly he becomes very brightly illuminated. And then the light dims. He, again, looks really fucking sad. Turns back around and looks out at the water. So, I don't know, you know, it's hard to say exactly what they did, but they definitely did something to Anna. And used Cass basically as bait.
And, like, so Cass just keeps getting used as bait. Like, it's dark.
Yeah.
Also, he's standing under, like, a lone light again. It's so...
So we cut, Sam is in the scrapyard. He is hot wiring a car, trying to get the fuck out. And then we hear the sound of a shotgun being cocked. And Sam turns around, and Bobby is there. And Bobby is, like, clearly trying to keep it together. And he's like, "The only place you're going is back inside with me." And Sam is like, "No, Bobby, like, I'm not. I have to go. I have to stop Lilith." And Bobby's like, "We are trying to help you. You need to come back inside." And Sam's like, "No, you won't shoot me. You can't do it." And Bobby's like, Sam starts slowly walking towards Bobby. And Bobby's like, "We are trying to help you. Please let us help you." And Sam stands right at the barrel of the gun and puts it up to his stomach. And then he grabs it and moves it right to the center of his chest. And he's like, "Okay, you want to help me? Then shoot." And Bobby is clearly, like, not going to do it. He kind of moves the gun away, like, pulls it back, like he's going to lower it. Then Sam grabs the barrel and pulls it out of Bobby's hands and uses the butt to knock Bobby out. He runs around, he hotwires the car, drives off, and we see Bobby laying on the ground, knocked out, as Sam is driving away.
Sam, girl, what are we doing?
The direction... Listen, I have my thoughts about Robert Singer as a director and as, like, a showrunner, but I'll be damned if this was not a very well-directed episode.
He ate this up.
Yeah. We cut back into the bunker. Dean and Bobby are standing there, like, looking around, and they notice that some of the devil's traps have been, like, worn away. So clearly, like, something got Sam out. And they are hedging their bets on it being Ruby. And Dean is like, "Okay, I'm gonna fucking find them. I'm gonna kill Ruby." And Bobby's like, "Okay, but we need to find Sam." And he's like, "Oh, well, hopefully they're together, so I will waste her ass. Because I don't care. Like, I will do it." And Bobby's like, "Well, you know, Sam doesn't want to be found. Like, and you know if he doesn't want to be found, he's gonna be hard to find." And Dean's like, "Well, I don't care if they're impossible to find. I know Sam, and I will find them."
Bobby at one point is like, "Oh, but aren't you on call for the angels, whatever?" And Dean is like, "Yeah, and I can be on call on the way to go kill that bitch."
Literally. We cut, and we see this, like, really nice hotel room, and I didn't know that it was supposed to be a nice hotel room because it looks like all the motel rooms that they stay in, just white. But they tell us later that this is a really nice hotel room. Sam's sitting on the couch, absolutely tweaking. Like, he's, like, leaning back and forth, like, rocking. He also looks like shit. Like, he has huge bags under his eyes. His skin is, like, very, like he's very pallid. He just does not look good. Someone knocks on the door, and Ruby walks in, and she's like, "Oh, you got us, like, the continental suite. This is nice. I hope you weren't trying to impress me." And he's like, "Oh my god, like, why haven't I been able to reach you? Why did you break me out?" And she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna be so real. I did not break you out, and I'm sorry that I can't sit around listening to my voicemail all day. I was busy trying to find Lilith. And then he gets frustrated. He kind of calms down a little, and she's like, I'm sorry. I didn't know that Dean would do this to you. If I had known, I would have been there. Did you really get the room to impress me? And
she's being so, like, nice. You're like, what is where did Ruby go?
But she's like, did you really get this room to impress me? And Sam, like, rolls his eyes, and he's like, well, Dean knows all of my moves. And he knows exactly what motels I would stay in, so I got, like, a really nice hotel room because he wouldn't expect it. Dean knows me well, but not as well as he thinks. And Ruby, like, comes over to Sam, and she's like, that's really sad. And Sam's like, what? And she reaches up and tucks a strand of hair behind his ear, and she's like, it's sad that things have gotten so bad between you two. And as she's doing this, he, like, grabs her shoulder and pushes her onto the bed. And they start, like,
it's
making
crazy
out,
style.
And he starts, like, going down, like, he's going down, like, he's gonna go down on her, almost. And she's like, hee hee hee. And then he pulls, like, a dagger out of her, that's, like, it's, like, tucked into her boot, and he pulls it out. And she's like, it's okay, like, do it. And he comes up and cuts her wrist and starts drinking her blood. And she has this happy little face on the whole time.
This is a mouse tool we'll use for later.
Ugh. We cut back to the scrapyard. Bobby is like, okay, well, it's the next day. And Bobby's like, well, the police found my car. It was abandoned in, I think he's like Jamestown in South Dakota or North Dakota. I don't remember. Regardless, he said the cops found his car and it was abandoned. And I think it's so funny because Bobby calling the police for any reason is hilarious. And just the idea of Bobby calling the cops is so funny.
It's because we know that he pretends to, like, be the cops and he has all those phones. Like,
yeah.
I just want to know his personas, you know?
Yeah, I need to get into Bobby's mind. But he's like, yeah, they found my car. And Dean's like, okay, well, were there any other cars, like, stolen nearby around that time? And Bobby's like, okay, yeah. There was a 1999 blue Honda Civic, which is, you know, probably something Sam would go for. Very, like, casual, very, very easy to blend in with. And there's also a white 2005 Escalade with custom rims. And Dean's like, okay, so that is the one he took. Because he does not, that is not his vibe. That's what he took. Bobby, you stay here. You keep an eye out on police scanners, all that stuff. I'm gonna go and find them. We cut back to the hotel room. Sam and Ruby are chilling in bed. And she's like, you know, your appetite's gotten bigger. And he looks a little offended. And she's like, no, like, it's a good thing. It means you're getting stronger. The final seals have been broken. There's only 2 or 3 left. And Sam is like, wait, what? Only 2 or 3? How come it took you so long to come get me? And she's like, well, sorry, I was busy. And he's like, well, what are the angels doing? And she's like, I don't know, not jack or shit, apparently, because I haven't heard or seen them. But there is good news, bad news. The 66 seal can only be broken by Lucifer's first, the first person that he tempted. You know, if you know the Bible, like, God makes man, Lucifer gets mad, tempts man, makes them sin. And apparently Lilith is the first ever tempted soul. So Ruby's like, only Lilith can break this seal. So Sam's like, okay, so she'll be there when we, like, if we can figure out what the seal is, then we'll be able to find her. And Ruby's like, right. And luckily I have a lead on where she is. I have info on a member of her entourage on who this is, like, basically her personal chef. Which is a crazy thing, because I'm like, demons, the only reason I think they would need to eat is just, like, for fun.
Yeah.
Which is even crazier, considering this next scene is these two nurses, and one of them is, she's like, oh my god, did you hear about that neonatal nurse at St. Paul who kidnapped these two babies? He was like 17 years of working there, and then she says she doesn't remember what happened. And another nurse, like, they walk up to, like, where the room, oh my god, I can't remember what it's called, but the room where all the babies are held at the hospital, and they look through the window. Not the NICU.
The
it's not
nursery?
called the NICU. Yeah, the nursery, basically. They look in, and they see all the babies, and the nurse is like, yeah, that's such a shame. I can't imagine hurting any of these little guys. They're all delicious. Which is, like, a fucked up thing to say, and her eyes turn black, so clearly she's the one of Lilith's entourage. We cut back to the hotel room, and they're, like, packing up, like, they're getting ready to go. And Ruby is like, you know, you're gonna need more demon blood, like, more than just my blood to kill Lilith. And Sam is like, like, he's clearly upset by this, because the implication is that, like, and I didn't get this until later on in the episode because I'm stupid, but the implication is, like, you're gonna have to drain someone dry to do this, which is a lot of fucking blood for a person to drink. But yeah, that's the implication. Sam looks kind of sad for a second, and he's like, I wish Dean was here. You know, I wish he just trusted me. And I hope we can fix things, you know, once this is all over. We cut back. Bobby and Dean are on the phone. Dean is driving. Bobby tells him that they found this Escalade ditched in, like, the Escalade had been ditched a few hours away from where Dean is. And he's like, and I've been checking weather maps, and I found that there's a town right nearby where you are that has all these demon signs. Like, there's, like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but if you'll remember a little while ago, I think it was Ash had developed this computer program to help track demon signs. So I guess he's using that.
I miss you, Ash.
I miss Ash too so fucking much. But, so he has found, like, oh, there's demon signs in this town nearby you. And he's also like, so Dean's like, okay, I'm gonna go there. And Bobby is like, you know, remember, we are looking to find Sam, and we want to bring him back, not push him away. So keep that in mind. And Dean hangs up on him, because he's like, right, anyway. And which shocking turn of events, spoilers, exactly what he does. Dean, we see he's in the hotel, which is crazy, because, like, how did he find the hotel? Reverse psychology is a hell of a drug.
I don't know. But, like, we see Sam, like, leave the door to, like, go somewhere, and then, like, Dean is coming around the hallway, and they're like, tee, like, he snuck in.
Yeah. So, but Dean goes into the room and starts, like, he sees Ruby and starts, like, beating the shit out of her, and she's fighting back. Like, they're going blow for blow. Dean pulls out the demon knife, goes to stab her, and Sam, like, grabs his arm, and he's like, oh my god, I'm happy you're here. Like, we can work this out. Just don't kill her. And Dean's like, no, I'm gonna kill her. And Sam's like, Ruby, run, go. And Ruby leaves. And he's like, Dean, I am here. Like, I can stop Lilith. I need to do this. And Dean's like, oh my god, Ruby is, like, manipulating you. Like, she suddenly is not around when you need her and makes you desperate. And now when she needs you, she calls you up and breaks you out. Right. Because he's still under the impression that Ruby broke Sam out. And he's like, Sam, she is manipulating you. I just want you to be okay. I am trying to stop you because I need you to be okay. And you would do the same thing for me. And Sam's like, okay, listen, we have a lead. Ruby has a lead. Like, I need Ruby. She is going to show me, like, where Lilith is. I am the only one who can do this. And Dean's like, no. I'm gonna be the one to do this because I was chosen by, like, I've worked with the angels, like, I'm gonna do this. And Sam's like, no, you are not strong enough. You need to stop bossing me around. Just please trust me. And Dean's like, I'm not gonna trust you, like, while Ruby is here, because she is clearly not good. What you are, like, you... And he says, like, what you are. And Sam's like, well, what?
It's very, like, what you are. Gay? Like...
But he's like, it's what you are. I mean, pauses. And Sam's like, no, say it. And he's like, you're becoming like a monster. Like, you're a monster. And Sam beats the fuck out of him. And they start to, like, fight. And they're, like, trashing this hotel room.
They also, in this conversation, he also says, like, Sam's like, I have always followed what you have said. And followed in your footsteps and whatever, and this time you need to trust me. And Dean's like, absolutely not, girl. It's very dark.
I don't really understand why Dean calls him a monster and why he doesn't just say because you're turning into a monster or something. I think just for the sake of story, but I'm also like, it doesn't really make sense Dean would say that, but it's fine. Anyway, they're fighting and Sam is winning. He gets on top of Dean and basically starts choking him out, and then he stops and he gets up. He says, Dean, you don't know me, you never did, and you never will. And he turns to leave, and Dean, who's, like, choking this, like, gasping this out because he's got choked out almost, he's like, if you walk out that door, don't you dare come back. Sam looks at him and walks out the door. And the last shot is Dean laying in this hotel room, so, like, sort of struggling to get up, and it's a shot from above. And then the episode fucking ends.
And Dean reverting to being John Winchester. I was like, no! No! I was like, do I have to end it all? Do I have to end it? Like,
oh, it's so... They're both their father's sons in this moment. And there's a really good line about it in the next episode that's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, and Bobby is... Because in the next episode, Bobby's like, you're a fucking idiot. And it's so good.
We have to talk about these episodes together, so I guess I'll just get right into it. I'll just get into season 4, episode 22, Lucifer Rising. And this episode also has some crazy style Destiel shit in it. Like, crazy style.
This has, like, I know I said the last episode has a very underrated Destiel scene. This has maybe one of the most, dare I say, overrated Destiel scenes, but it is that good, so I'm like, it's not really overrated, but it's a little, it's like, you see it in every single edit, and the more I think about it, maybe it's not overrated. I'm just...
Which one?
You'll know. You know.
Okay, I was like, wait, which one? Okay, okay.
There are multiple, but you know. You'll know it when we get to it.
Okay. We open on 1972 at St. Mary's Convent in Ilchester, Maryland. That's right. Satan's coming back in Maryland.
No, and you know what? I was debating how much I was going to talk about this. For those of you who don't know, I do live in Maryland, and when I saw that Satan is coming back in Howard County, I said, yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, no offense to if you live in Howard County, but I'm like, right, okay. And then he's going to go to Ellicott City, and maybe he could have said, you know what did Satan ever do to stop the flooding? Like, come on.
I'm just saying, big win for those of us in the DMV from Virginia. At least we didn't bring Satan back. A lot of things Virginia takes the L on, but not this.
This is somehow Larry Hogan's fault. I know Larry Hogan was not the governor when this was happening, because it was like 5 years before, but I'm still finding a way to blame him for it.
I think you should. So... It's 1972. We are at a convent. It's kind of dark, and there's a priest at the front of a church. And all we see is a puff of smoke, a demon, like zooming towards this priest to possess him, which is hilarious given that it's a priest. And he's like, no, and then he gets possessed.
And you can also tell that this is like a high-level demon because the consecrated ground didn't do anything to them. Except for the fact that I think they've kind of just, like, ignored that about demons going forward. Like, they don't really fuck with the whole consecrated ground being a thing that stops them anymore, but I digress.
Yeah. Holy water does, but not a church. I don't know. I think it's that it's this church. That they do say that this church specifically with Satan, like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah. But it's also a strong demon.
Yeah. So,
anyway.
Well, we don't find out that until it's, like, supernatural, and then we see this priest who has now, of course, been possessed. He's giving a sermon to the congregation who are all nuns, and then his eyes flash yellow. It's Azazel. We love him. We haven't seen him in a while. And he's giving a speech, and he starts to kind of go off the rails, and he's like, everybody's forgotten about my father and this and that, and because your father's and whatever. And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, because my father was once an angel. And you realize he's talking about Lucifer, because he's a demon. Although I never really understood, the demons never really talked about him as their father, really, but I guess he's going for a metaphor here.
I mean, it could be like the way that it's like, well, God is everyone's father, in the way Lucifer is everyone's father. Like, it's not like he's actually, like, their biological father. He's just like,
I mean, he did
these are my homies.
Create the demons. Yeah, but
that's what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, isn't it so crazy that they built a church here, a nun factory over the cage? And they're all like, what the fuck is he saying? Whatever. And then he kills a bunch of nuns. And you're like, okay, so something's happening here. Something's occurring. We cut to the present day. There's this abandoned house. Sam is with Ruby. He is outside leaning up against her car, and he's still upset over his fight with Dean. But he has no marks or anything from the fact that they beat the shit out of each other. No bruises, nothing. I mean, he doesn't look good, but like it's odd. Ruby is being exceptionally nice, and she's like, Dean shouldn't have said that, but I think you guys can patch things up later after it's over. And unlike in the last episode, Sam's like, no, like, Dean's right. And also that there's not going to be an after for me. And he's like, I've changed for good. And it's better off if Dean is as far away from me as possible. And Ruby's like, no, don't talk like that. Like, let's just get it done. Like, that's not true, whatever. And like, clearly Sam's like, no, like, this is the end for me, obviously. And I am he's basically accepted. He's like, I've become a monster, and that's okay. Which is an interesting development. And then we cut to Bobby's place. Dean, also not a scratch on him, will not call Sam, which is what he said. I am sick and tired of chasing him around. And he says, he's like, I'm not even sure if he's my brother anymore. And you're like, whoa. And this is where Bobby, top 10 moments in Bobby loses his shit. Bobby is like, you're acting like a spoiled little brat. And
dial 999, it's a good time. Who the fuck are you? I'm a brat when I'm bumping that.
No, literally,
I'm bumping that. Anyway, that's a reference to Charlie XCX's hit song 365 from Brat.
Yeah, and he's like, you're acting like a spoiled little brat, and you're acting like your father. And I was like, ooh. Like, he's like, you're acting like your father because your father was a fucking coward. And you're like, oh, shit.
No, I love, because we all know, like, Bobby and John had a falling out. Like, that's something we know from the first time we meet Bobby. But something I love is that when we get that crack where we see, like, oh, Bobby fucking hates John so much.
And that's also when you start to love Bobby, because you're like, yeah, he's like me for real. Like, and he's like, John failed to reach out to Sam. He was a fucking coward about it. He knew about this stuff. And Bobby says to Dean, he says, you are a better man than your father ever was. And I'm like, I'm crying. I'm like, oh God, whatever. And Dean can't really take this, and he turns around and he walks towards the wall, and suddenly he's not in the room with Bobby anymore. And you're like, wait, what just happened? And he's in this very ornate, give it like Rococo style hotel room, something. There's this big table laid out that has like, okay. Do you guys remember? Remember that picture of the White House dining room when Donald Trump got a bunch of
Shut up
hamburgers? Got a bunch
for the
of
basketball
McDonald's
team?
Yes!
Oh, holy fuck. That's absolutely what this is.
It looks exactly like that because there's like all these things that appeal to Dean. Obviously, like hamburgers and beer, whatever, but they're in these like big, like golden ornate things, whatever. And it looks, if you've seen that photo, you know exactly what it looks like. And this room has like all these like biblical Renaissance paintings and sculptures and things, whatever. And he is in this fuck ass room. I just had to say that because it's been haunting me.
No, because you know what? They were dumb as hell because, you know, what's more appealing than a fast food hamburger that is clearly not fresh? Gross.
Yeah. He's in this room, and then suddenly, who appears? It's Zachariah, our least favorite angel.
Oh, see, I love him because he's Woody from Psych. The priest from the beginning of the episode, I also recognized because he was a one-off character in an episode of Psych as well, and I'm like, what is going on with me?
So, Zachariah and also Castiel looking fucking dejected behind him. And Zachariah comes and he's like, tee, I'm here. And Dean's like, where the fuck am I? What the fuck is this? And
he also says something else here.
Like, what?
He says, oh, it's like the sweet life of Zach and Cass, you know, like,
oh,
never mind. Like, trying to make a Zach and Cody reference, which is crazy, because it's like a nice hotel room. And I'm like, hey, are we saying that the sweet life of Zach and Cody exists in the Supernatural universe, starring Kim Rhodes as their mom, who also plays Jody later in Supernatural?
It's a little crazy.
This is just one of those things where it's like people always talk about, like, in a universe that has like actors playing characters, or that has like people talk about this with like the MCU or whatever, but it's like, how does this justifiably exist? Like, does Samuel L. Jackson exist, and do his movies exist in the MCU?
Yeah.
So like,
is he in Star Wars when they reference Star Wars?
Yeah. Does Kim Rhodes exist in the Supernatural universe as an actor? That's what I'm saying.
This is what we have to know. This is what you have to know. Him making a Sweet Life of Zach and Cody reference is so wild, because, like, that's not his age group. How does he know that show?
Dean does seem like the kind of guy who stays up watching, like, random bullshit, like, whatever they're playing on Disney Channel, like, 3 a.m. when he can't find the remote in a motel room, and I feel like he watched that show and was like, huh, this is kind of fun. And then fell asleep, but I feel like he's almost made a habit of it.
So yeah, it's Zachariah and Castiel. And Zachariah's like, so we're trying to keep you safe because we're in the end game now, boys. So think of this as the green room before the big show. And we're trying to keep you focused on, you know, the grand finale. And he's like, you know, have at it. Like, you know, we brought your favorite beer and your favorite hamburgers from this place in like Delaware or whatever. He's like, oh, and you can like have whoever you want. And he references a TV show that definitely was not on when Dean was a child, I don't think. He makes a Brady Bunch reference, but that's not the one. He references, not Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, it's Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, like, I could get you this character or this character. And he's, like, tempting. And then he's like, I love this holodeck shit. And you're like, okay, the references, we get it. Let's keep it pushing. He's like, but, like, why are we here? Like, what is the reason? And Zachariah's like, okay, so all but one of the 66 seals have been broken. Surprise. And it has to be Lilith that breaks it. And Dean's like, so what am I supposed to do? Like, whatever. Like, what have I agreed to? Whatever. And he's like, sit tight. It's on a need-to-know basis. You'll know when you know. And he's like, where am I supposed to get this done? Whatever. He's like, I'll let you know. And Castiel is standing in the corner looking fucking stressed. And Dean is getting, like, upset. And he's like, I'm gonna leave. Fuck this. And Zachariah's like, number one, how? And number two, you did swear your obedience to the angels and God, so you have to obey. And seeing Dean being like, he has to what, is so... We cut back to the hospital that we saw earlier, where Lilith's chef, she's making her weird little jokes about how these babies are too good to eat, and she steals a baby. She goes into, like, a side hallway, and then suddenly Sam stops her. Sam and Ruby appear, and they attack her, and they capture her. And basically, she was the lead, and they're going to press her on where Lilith is. And they're back at the abandoned house from the beginning of the episode, and they have her tied down to a table, whatever, and they're torturing her. And she's like, listen, what are you going to do to me? You're either going to torture me and then kill me, and I tell you, or torture me and then kill me, and I don't tell you, and either way, you're going to kill me, or she's going to kill me. Why does it matter? And Sam's like, it's more about what happens before I kill you, and then starts torturing her crazy style. And she's, like, screaming, crying, throwing up, whatever. And finally, she's like, fine. She's going to be at St. Mary's Convent in Ilchester, Maryland at midnight tomorrow. And he's like, okay, but, like, what is the final seal? And she's like, I swear, like, I don't know. I don't actually know that part. That's all I know. And he's going to kill her. And Ruby's like, wait, we need to keep her alive because, like, my blood wasn't enough. You need to feed on her, too. And he's like, oh, fucking shit. And the demon's like, fine, at least I'll make this a little harder for you. And she's like, maybe I'll just go take a little nap, a little vacation, and recede into the subconscious of this vessel. And she recedes, and the vessel, the girls, comes back, and she's like, oh my God, where am I? I mean, whatever. And Sam is confronted with the fact that he is going to have to drink the blood of this innocent human who is the vessel. And he's like, oh my God, she is screaming, she is crying, she is throwing up.
I have something I have to add here. And this is, I feel like, one of those things where I'm like, okay, not to cinema sins it, because I know it's like, okay, it's just for the sake of the story.
Yeah.
Bobby lives in South Dakota. Dean went to wherever Sam was staying at a hotel room, was within, like, a day's drive of there, and then drove back to Bobby's house after. Right?
Yeah.
And was able to be there that morning. Sam is at this house with Ruby, and now has to drive to Maryland, and is able to make it to Maryland in this about the same amount of time it would take Dean to get there.
It's not
Where the fuck are they? Where are they? That's a lot. Like, South Dakota to Maryland is a really fucking long drive. And then being like, oh, Lilith is going to be there tomorrow at midnight. You need to hit the road, Jack.
Yeah, you need to be on the fucking Amtrak Acela. Like, we cut back to the green room, and Dean is alone. And he's like, okay, screw it, fine. And he calls Sam to leave a voicemail, and he's like, I'm sorry, I just want to help you. And he apologizes to him, and he leaves him a voicemail. And then we cut back to 1972. We're at the convent. All these nuns are dead. Azazel is kneeling on the floor. He's like, I'm so excited to be able to speak to you, Dad. Like, all the other demons, like, they gave up, but I didn't. And, you know, I just need to know what to do to break you out. So, like, you know, I've prayed and I've offered you this sacrifice, whatever. And if you could just, like, speak to me, like, through a crack in the door of the cage, whatever. And there is a dead nun, like, strewn out on her back on the altar. And she suddenly starts to speak. And she's like, Lilith, you need Lilith. And Lucifer's like, Lilith is stuck in a pretty deep part of hell too. And Lucifer's like, Lilith, you need Lilith. And he's also like, also, you need to find a very special child. And he's like, what do you mean by that? And then it cuts. So we cut back to the present day. And Sam is doing his research about the massacre at St. Mary's.
Which is funny, because it's like, you need to find a special child, and then it cuts to Sam.
Yeah. Oh, also, forgot to say, because this is the last episode of the season, they do the Carry On Wayward Son, the road so far thing. And I'll just say, in this or but in the previous episodes Road So Far, which is like just a normal, recap, they say something about God, and you then immediately cut to Chuck in the recap. I just thought that was interesting. Anyways, we cut to Sam. He's reading about the massacre in 1972, and he's talking to Ruby, and he's like, they don't really know much, whatever, except that the priest said that he was possessed by a demon named Azazel. And Ruby's like, yeah, seems like all the A-listers were out and about, and they were all involved. And he's like, okay, well, then it seems like the demon was telling the truth. Like, that has to be the place. And then we cut to...
The fact that they never just, like, Googled Azazel's name while they were hunting him, are they stupid? Or unless, like, they read this and were like, okay, I guess it's not important because, like, you know, they probably just may have read it and brushed over it because they didn't have context. But, like, guys...
I think John is a fucking boomer. I swear to God. Just use the internet. I'm tired. So, we cut to Sam shoving this girl who is awake now. And she's like, I'm a nurse. I have a husband. I have this, whatever. And they're like, and she's awake. They didn't even knock her out or anything. And they're shoving her into the trunk of the car, which has a devil's trap in it. And she's like yelling and screaming. And they start driving to Maryland. And she's like screaming. They can hear her the whole way, whatever. And Sam's like, oh, I wish she would just stop. And Ruby's like, well, I mean, we could make that happen. And he's like, no, like, let's just keep going. And he sees that there's a voicemail from Dean. And he doesn't listen to it. And he's like, he's starting to have second thoughts, especially with this innocent girl. And he's like, maybe Dean was right all along. And Ruby's like, no, girl, like, we have to see this through to the end. Like, we're so close. We cut back to the green room. And Dean is now there with Cassiel. And Cass is like, is there anything you want? Like, while you wait, you can have anything, whatever. And Dean's like, I want to see Sam. And he's like, well, that's the one that you can't have. And he's like, well, then can I just go out for a little bit? And he's like, no, I will be going with you then to supervise. And he's like, no. And he's like, fine, then I'm leaving. And he's like, try leaving. Where's the door, bitch? And the door has disappeared. And now Dean is just taking shit. He's knocking shit down. He's using angel statues to rip out of the room. It's very symbolic, whatever. He can't get out. And Zachariah appears. And he's like, what's going on? I can't see Sam. How am I going to kill Lilith? Like, I don't understand. What am I supposed to be fucking doing? And Zachariah's like, well, you're not going to kill Lilith. She is going to break the final seal. And Dean's like, what? What do you mean? And Zachariah's like, well, yeah, we never actually wanted to stop Lilith from freeing Lucifer. That was the point. The higher management of angels, and they wanted the apocalypse to happen, so that we could defeat hell for good, and stop Lucifer for good, and bring about paradise on earth like we've always wanted to. That's the name of the game. And Dean's like, what about all the people that are going to die? And he's like, well, when you make an omelet, you have to break a bunch of eggs. In this case, truckloads of eggs. And Dean is losing his shit. He's like, this is so wrong. This is whatever. I won't help you, whatever. And he's like, well, what about Sam? He's like, he's not going to stop until he's stopped Lilith. And Zachariah's like, Sam has a part to play. And you should really, really about yourself and your own role. And he's like, okay, then what is that? And he's like, well, you have to kill Lucifer once he's risen. And Dean's like, okay, where's God in all of this? Good question to ask. And Zachariah's like, God's left the building. I know Chuck was giggling writing this.
Do you think he was like, oh my God, guys, we're having a party because God is not home. We broke into God's liquor cabinet.
If the teacher doesn't show up after 15 minutes, we can leave.
If the teacher doesn't show up after 15 minutes, we can bring about paradise on earth.
Yeah, They're literally just going hog wild. And now we realize why Castiel was standing there looking so fucking devastated. And also in this conversation, Dean is like, well, what about all the angels who were out there and fighting and whatever? And they were like, well, we couldn't just tell the grunts on the ground. We had to give them a story, about what was actually going to happen. So, sorry. Meaning that not everybody knows this information. Obviously, this is a big reveal. We cut to, we're about 2 miles away from the convent. Sam and Ruby stop, and Sam listens to Dean's message. And it's not the message we heard him record. It's Dean's voice, but it's not the message we heard him record. And it's very much sounds like the vision of Dean being like, you're a monster, I don't ever want to speak to you, blah, blah, blah. It's not something Dean would say. And Sam's like, good, fuck this shit, fine. And that gives him the resolve to kill this girl so he can drink her blood and face Lilith.
Yeah, because in the message that, Sam hears is basically Dean being like, I'm giving you a heads up that, next time I see you, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Don't try to contact me again, you dumb bitch. Bye.
It's this is for Rachel, you big stupid ass. That voicemail.
Literally.
We cut back to the green room, and here we are for another Destiel moment. Castiel returns. He's like, I'm sorry for lying to you. And Dean is like, so that's what you're going to do. You're just going to follow orders. And even though you know what the angel's doing is wrong, which is ironic considering what he used to do following his father. And
okay, I would argue that John Winchester is an asshole, but John Winchester's an asshole.
Okay.
But I don't think that anything John Winchester did is quite as bad as this.
Well, no. Actually, yes, because I hate that man. No, you're right. But, so he's like, you need to help us. We have to stop the apocalypse. And you wanted to do that once. And he says, before he was dragged back to Bible camp. And, here's the piece where the queer coding goes crazy stupid, because it's literally like they sent Castiel to conversion camp when they saw him with his little friend. It's crazy. It's nuts to me. And Castiel is like, no, I can't help you. You're on your own, whatever. And you and Dean's like, you have to do what's right, whatever. And he's like, fine, then leave. I don't want to talk to you. And then he turns around, and Dean kind of looks like he wishes Castiel had stayed, but Castiel left, and he could tell he's bereft. And you're like, oh my god, I have to kill myself.
No, this is such a good scene, too. It's kind of hard to, convey over just speech, because, the vibes that are happening are so good. Just, the chemistry they have is really good.
It's insane town. Castiel looks so sad and so... It's insane. We cut, and Dean is alone now in the room. And he's looking at the table with the burgers and stuff. And he goes to kind of reach for a burger because he's like, well, I guess I've been here for a while. I'm kind of hungry. And before he can eat it, Castiel reappears and, throws it out of his hand and, slams him up against the wall and, covers his mouth.
This is one of the most homoerotic scenes because also, they're, nodding at each other. They are speaking without speaking. Cass has him pinned to a wall with his hand over his mouth. What the fuck? Bitch. This scene is in every Destiel edit. This is what I was talking about when I was like, oh, it's, the most overrated Destiel scene. But now I'm like, it isn't actually overrated. It's just rated correctly. But it is extremely fucking crazy.
Well, and this is the moment that Castiel chooses him. This is the moment that Castiel rebels for him. And Castiel, and the piece of it is, here's the crazy thing, that whole thing with the hamburger on the table, whatever, it's a metaphor for the forbidden fruit. And he stops him from following the same pattern of the fall of man, whatever, and you're like, oh my god, chills. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna end it all. This is crazy. This is bonkers.
Fuck you, Eric Kripke, for writing and directing this episode. Fuck you.
He literally saved him from original sin. Like, he's ripped him tight and raised him from perdition twice. Like, huh? And it's, and obviously there's that whole thing of, like, when you're in the fairy world, you're not supposed to eat the food, whatever, and he stops him, like, it's just, it's crazy boots. It's crazy bonkers. You're not gonna have this kind of juice again. You're just not gonna have this, until later, the super hell episode, but thinking back on this, when he's like, I did all of this, I rebelled for you, it's crazy, it's bonkers. He covers his mouth, whatever. They're having their queer-to-queer mind communication. And Dean immediately gets that, like, he's doing something he's not supposed to. Because suddenly Castiel is acting kind of normal. He's not acting like this dejected, sad clown that he has been for the past 2 episodes. And suddenly, and this is also super weird and homoerotic, he is holding his hand up against Dean's mouth, pushing him up against the wall, and then takes a knife and cuts himself open so that he can use the blood to draw sigils on the wall. And Dean's like, what the fuck? Dean's like, well, this is something we'll unpack later.
Dean's like, please don't notice I have a boner right now.
Yeah. He's like, and he draws an angel banishing signal on the wall with his own blood, Castiel does. And Zachariah arrives, because clearly that's what he was about to do, and Castiel was prepared for it, and he just puts a handprint on the wall, and he banishes Zachariah. And Cass is like, okay, I'll take you to Sam to stop him from killing Lilith. And he's like, because her dying is the final seal. And Dean's like, oh, shit. So clearly, obviously, taking him out of there and him telling his information is Castiel rebelling. And he's like, when she dies, the end begins. And your brother is working under false information. Which means that Castiel knew this whole time and couldn't say it. And it's been wrecking him. And this is what Cass was going to tell Dean before he left Jimmy Novak's body. So where do they go to find Sam? They visit the prophet Chuck, because he's supposed to be knowing everything that's going on. Chuck is on the phone, and a quote from the wiki, attempting to order 20 hookers. He is on the phone being like, I'm blowing it all, I'm trying to get whatever, and they're like, you can't afford this, and he's like, yes I can, it's the end, whatever.
He says, which is so funny, because he's on the phone, the first thing you hear is, oh, that sounds moist. And the line on the phone's like, yeah, I'll get you like $1,000 for an hour with a girl. And he's like, okay, I'll take 20. And she's like, girl, I don't think you can afford that. And he's like, well, sometimes it's just all or nothing. But we also see in this scene, like, we see his computer that he's been writing on, and he has titled this Lucifer Rising, which is the name of the episode. So clearly he was writing, he was like, oh, we're so fucked. I'm just gonna blow it all, the world's ending. Which is, like, one of those other things where I'm like, when you have context of him being retroactively decided to be God, it doesn't quite make a lot of sense, because he's also by himself. Like, he has no reason to be doing this performance, but I digress.
Yeah, but, he's being silly, I guess. He's being silly.
He's LARPing.
Honestly, that makes sense. He's LARPing in his own story with his two little Sims that he tortures. He's also... They also have a line earlier where Zachariah is talking to Dean, and he makes a reference to the whole 72 virgins thing, and it's kind of bad. Don't. It's very early 2000s Islamophobic. It's bad. Just know this episode has some weird shit with all that going on. We love women on the show, don't we?
We do. I can't say the same for them.
Yeah, it's something. They show up and they're like, Chuck, tell us now where he is. And he's like, this is not how it happened. This is not how it happened. What is going on? Whatever. And he's like, he's at this convent with Lilith. And then, obviously, because they are threatening him, the archangel that protects him starts to make its presence known. And they're like, shit, we gotta go. And Cass is like, I'll hold it off. You go. And so then he transports Dean there. And we just see the Archangel is coming, and him and Chuck are just standing there staring out the window. Castiel and Chuck. And we cut to the convent, and Lilith and her minions are there, and she's like, get ready, y'all. Let's go. And Sam and Ruby arrive, and basically Sam makes fucking quick work of the people around, and he pins Lilith to the altar already, and his eyes turn black when he does it, and you're like, oh shit, it's going down. But now you know that he doesn't know that killing her is actually the wrong thing to do. He's been given the wrong information, and you're like, oh my god. Basically Lilith is like, you don't have the juice to kill me. She's like, oh, you're really roided up, like, try it, bitch. And Ruby sees that Dean has arrived, and she closes the chapel door to lock him out. And Sam, they do this, like, cool thing where, like, as he's trying to kill her, like, you're hearing these, like, heartbeats. Like, he's trying really hard. It's very intense. And suddenly he's hearing Dean shouting his name outside the door. Like, Dean being like, oh my god, Sam, Sam. And he hears it, and he kind of hesitates. And Lilith is like, oh, so you can't even do it? You're gonna be a pussy about it? Whatever. And then Ruby's like, hurry up, like, finish it. And then his eyes turn black, and he kills Lilith, and she falls over, and she's dead. And suddenly the blood that is trickling out of her mouth forms this spiral on the floor, and something is starting. Ruby is absolutely fucking ecstatic. She's giggling, she's kicking her feet, she's whatever, and she's like, oh my god, we did it, Joe. Lilith's death was the final seal to free Lucifer. I was the most loyal. I was the one who made it happen all along. And now the final seal is broken, and the cage is open, and Lucifer is going to be free. And Sam's like, oh my god, she really was lying to me the whole time. Oh my god. And he tries to kill her with his demon powers. And she's like, sorry, bud, you used it all up on Lilith, and now you got nothing. And he's like, you poisoned me. And she's like, no, it wasn't really the blood. And she says, I showed you the options, and you chose the right path every time. And I'm like, you didn't show him the options. You gave him deliberately wrong information. So, not really, but okay, queen. And Ruby is slaying boots here, I fear. She is. I don't know if I agree with this turn in her character, but she's slaying. And Sam's like, why did it have to be me?
She's also acting the shit out of this, because she is like,
yeah.
You know, I'm awesome. Like, she literally says that, where she's like, I was the most loyal, I was able to do this, I'm kind of awesome. Like, I'm awesome.
She's like, we did it, Joe. Like, she's like, I did this. She's like, and Sam's like, why did it have to be me? Ruby's like, well, you were the only one who could bring Lucifer back. They don't really say why. But Lucifer's gonna reward you with, like, anything you could want. And then Dean finally breaks in. And she's like, you're too late. And he's like, I don't care. And Sam jumps up and grabs Ruby and basically holds her up so that Dean can stab her. And they finally kill her, as they're both, basically the two of them, help each other to kill her. And they stare at each other with her in between them. Like, literally, it's that she was in between them. And Sam is like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm so sorry, whatever. But suddenly, in the middle of their apology tour, the spiral of Lilith's blood turns into this beam of light, and it starts to turn. And an opening in the floor comes, and, like, the ground is shaking, whatever. And Sam is like, we have to go. And Dean's like, oh my god, he's coming. And the light burns really bright, and Lucifer's coming. And that's the end of season 4.
That's the end of season. And who comes out of the portal? Bill Cipher. Let's talk about it. No. That's a joke.
They could never beat Bill Cipher. If Bill Cipher came out of the fucking portal, they could never beat that.
No, they'd be fucked.
They'd be fucked.
What are our final thoughts? What do we think?
I think with Ruby, her character being someone who wants to go against hell, I found interesting. So it's kind of like and in the end, she was just whatever. But she kind of slayed in doing it, so I'll allow it. I go back from, and also, like, her representing what's between them, literally, I'm like, can't we treat women as people and not metaphors? But that's supernatural for you.
Yeah, it's also interesting because it's like, oh, Ruby and the demons are what was between Sam and Dean, but, and because she's a woman, but because, like, the angels are other than, like, Anna, are, like, mostly men, it's like, oh, the angel, like, I think it's also, it's like, the way that they're between them is not portrayed in such a physical and, like, tangible way, even though, like, they are just as between them as Ruby was.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it feels, it's one of those things where I'm like, because she's a woman, it just feels weirdly sexualized and weirdly, like, sexist.
And
but, you know, other than that...
And it does not have to be. It doesn't... It doesn't have to be. God, these are real, they're really good character work to them. There's a lot of good acting. They do a lot of good stuff. Bobby has a lot of great stuff. Obviously, top 10 moments in Destiel. It's really got it all. There's going to be some great moments in season 5. I mean, crazy cliffhanger. If I had been watching this, I would have been like, what? Yeah, I don't know if I have any. I mean, we said a lot of what we were going to say. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like overall this was a pretty good season. I think it's like as every season, especially when you have this many episodes, like there were some missteps here and there. But I think overall, like the arc of Dean coming back and being like, I was going to be in hell and I'm finally scared to die. Like finally admitting that I'm scared to die and admitting I don't think I deserve to be brought back. And then sort of the arc of him now being like, oh, I'm like the only person who can stop this. Well, where does that leave me? Because I think we leave Sam and Dean both in a place of being like, what we had been learning this entire season about everybody was wrong. Now who are we? Now we need to pick up the pieces. Like, I think it took them in some really interesting places and tested their loyalty in an interesting way.
Yeah. Also, knowing what happens to Cass, Lord God, I can't.
No, and I can't stop thinking about, the thing I can't stop thinking about right now that's killing me, it's making me go sick because it's one of my least favorite moments from the entire show, is when Metatron tells Cass that he's in love with humanity. And I'm like, this was the moment that is from a later season. That was like the last season finale I watched of Supernatural before I was like, fuck this show. But that, I kept thinking about that while I was watching this episode, because this really was Cass being like, because it's like Cass did choose Dean, like, because that was like his main catalyst was that Dean was there. Dean was the one doing the convincing. But I think that like Cass knew that culling humanity was wrong. Like he would have, I think, I'd like to think that Dean did a lot to deprogram him, but Cass knew all along and would have done the right thing in the end regardless. Yeah. Because he like, much like God says, like, you will love all of my creations. Like, he follows that. And I think it's almost interesting of Cass being like, I follow the teachings of God, not what they make of it. And I think that's like an interesting interpretation of like an angel character.
And the fact that he got sent back to conversion camp, like he got sent back to conversion camp, and he's like, also later on when he kills the Westboro Baptist Church as like a real Christian of like, I actually do love everybody. And also the fact like a part of his character is loving humanity in its flaws, and Dean represents that, all of humanity's, like all of like Dean represents all of like the 7 deadly sins, whatever. Oh God, I can't talk about them without going crazy. We can't. Yeah,
that's the problem. Is we will, because that's the thing. Destiel isn't just good from like they have chemistry and they're 2 sexy men.
Yeah,
but just from a pure textual standpoint of like narrative existence. And I also think it's tough because we talk about like, I always try to watch these episodes without my Destiel glasses on, but it's so hard when they make it so present and obvious. And it's like, I genuinely don't know how you walk away from this not thinking, hey, there's something there.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, this show conditions you in a certain way because normally it would be a woman character who would be doing all this, like Anna, like Ruby, like whatever, and then suddenly that woman character is replaced by a man, and it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. What's that about? What is that about?
Do you think Sam is mad that his special girlfriend turned out to be evil, and Dean's special girlfriend turned out to be willing to rebel for him? Do you think that gave Sam a complex at all? Do you think Sam's like,
absolutely?
Fuck, okay.
I hate gay people, actually.
Sam was an ally before it was cool. Let's be so real. That's why he has mad beef with John.
Yeah,
he's like, you can't keep saying things about gay people.
Well, John has no problem with gay people. He just doesn't like Dean.
I forgot. You're right. I forgot that John is canonically, like, cool with gays. He loves them. He's like, Dean, I would love and accept you. Like, honestly, if you were gayer, I'd probably like you more.
If you were gay, that's fine. But if you weren't a hunter, kill yourself.
No, literally. But then he's like, but you're also Dean, so...
My one child is gay in the 90s and 2000s, and my other child wants to be a lawyer. Guess which one I kicked out of the house?
What house?
Well, true. Remember when he kept those kids homeless? He needs to go to jail.
Yeah,
especially when your ears. He needs to go to prison.
Especially when you had someone like Bobby who absolutely loved those kids and would have been like, oh, they can stay with me for the weekend while John has to do a fuck-ass hunting trip, you know?
Yeah.
Like, girl, fuck you.
I love when the show becomes the John Winchester hate hour.
Yeah, everybody hates John Winchester in a shocking turn of events. What? No.
That's crazy.
We all hate John. The girls hate John. No. Yeah, that's it. This has been so exciting. We have finally finished this season. We have finally finished season 4, and now we are on to season 5. Next time you hear from us, we will be talking about that. So, thank you for listening. If you want more from us, more all of our updates, etc., you can follow us on social media. We're at Mystery Spotcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Tumblr. You can ask us questions in our Tumblr Ask Box or emailing us at themysteryspotcast@gmail.com. So you remember, we are trying to raise money for a family to escape Gaza. It is Mohammed's fundraiser for himself, his daughter Noor, his mother Alia, and we are trying to get them to 10K. So the link is in our show notes. Please check that out. We really appreciate it. If you enjoy listening to us suffer, rate the show, leave us a review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can leave reviews. You can also comment on our YouTube channel because we're YouTubers now, JK. And you can tell a friend. We always appreciate that. We are backsliding into Destiel, so if you have a fic recommendation, you can send it to us via the form in our show notes. We may shout one out we like. I feel like we haven't yet, but I also haven't had as much time to read fan fiction recently, but hopefully I will get back on that train soon. Which is not something I feel like I should be striving for, but I digress. If you want to hear more from us, we are 2 co-hosts of Roop Helps Pod Race, a queer pop culture podcast. We used to do Star Wars. Now we're doing a bunch of other stuff. We're going to do something super fun for the fall, like September, October. So please check it out. And we will see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer baiting things, the supernatural business.